Before we sort of get in to his section of the game covering his team, I want to talk about the Giants. Look, the Saints won this game last year 24-6, and Derek Carr looked like a Harvard scholar. The way the Giants are going to beat Derek Carr is give him less time to make decisions, and that comes with stopping Alvin Kamara in the run game. So if the Giants want any chance to win this game, you have to key in on Alvin Kamara. He is really the only weapon I'm really concerned about right now in the Saints offense, right? There's no Michael Thomas anymore. There's Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are on season-ending IR. Taysom Hill, most likely done for the year. He hasn't practiced all week. That seems to be a long-term injury. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when it comes to the Giants and the Saints. Saints are favored by, I believe the last I checked, the line was 4.5 points. And for a team that's 4-8, they're still in the mix of that NFC South race. They're 2 games back in the win column of the Falcons and the Bucks. Saints defense last year had 7 sacks on Tommy DeVito. And they're a team this year, their defense has carried. They've been dealt a very raw hand with injuries. It's been really, really bad for them. They lost Paulson Adebo early. Ryan Ramczyk hasn't played all season. Derek Carr has been in and out of the lineup. They lost both their starting receivers. It's been a struggle, and I sort of feel for them. They started the year 2-0. Everybody's sort of been in cahoots with saying, yeah, the Saints are a below-average team. They had their head coach, Dennis Allen, fired. But since the Dennis Allen firing, they're 2-1 with Darren Rizzi taking over as the interim head coach. So definitely intrigued to see what's going to happen with them there. Now, when I look at the Giants in this game, we need Brian Daboll to open up the playbook early for Drew Lock. I think if you get the Saints defense teetering early, it will go well, and Drew Lock is a gunslinger. You want him to feel comfortable in the pocket, so you want to establish that running game while taking a couple of shots down the field. It'll definitely be very interesting to see that on Sunday. And it'll be at MetLife Stadium, a place where the Giants folks, they haven't won a home game at MetLife Stadium all season long. So the Giants desperately need a win at home, especially in the post-Daniel Jones era. So it sucks. Don't get me wrong, folks. It sucks that this is where we're at as Giants fans, right? There weren't these high expectations going into the season, but this was the year for Daniel Jones. And I've seen a lot of hate. I mean, Daniel Jones has been off the team for almost 2 weeks now, and he is still the number one subject of this football team. It is making me sick to hear media personalities constantly talk about Daniel Jones. I'm not going to call out any names, but it was a business decision. He's gone. Daboll has to keep his job. So he's going to do the best he can with the personnel that he has to ride out these last 5 games and stay competitive. How many are they going to win? I don't know, because you're looking. 3 of their captains are gone. Daniel Jones is on the Vikings practice squad. Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence are both out for the season. Those are our best 2 football players, folks, out for the season. Bobby Okereke didn't practice today. That's your 4th captain. They interviewed the only healthy captain on the team today, long snapper Casey Kreider, talking about how, look, you need leaders on this football team. They need guys like Greg Van Roten to step up, Darius Slayton to step up, John Runyon, Jermaine Illuminor, whoever it is. The Giants really need guys out there being vocal to help this team win, because right now there's no identity of this football team. So that'll be interesting to see. Also, folks, we're going to bring up Sean once he's ready. He's backstage. Looks like Sean is good to go. So let's bring him up, folks. This is Sean Militello from Off the Dome Sports, New Orleans Saints superfan. Sean, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, and welcome back to the show.
Yes, a second year in a row, we get to talk about Saints versus Giants, this time in New York instead of New Orleans. No Tommy Cutlets, but I'm fine with that. But I appreciate you for having me on, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving as well.
Absolutely. Always great talking to you. It's definitely a lot of fun. So my first question to you, we want to familiarize ourselves with the Saints a little bit. So 2-1 since the firing of Dennis Allen. You and I had some dialogue about Dennis Allen before the season started. What's changed since his firing?
I think that, DA has gotten a lot of, harsh feedback from fans, analysts, probably even players. So it is this one big monkey on everybody's backs in the organization. It's like we were fighting the inevitable the whole time, because we just knew that Dennis Allen wasn't the guy that could make us or continue us in being a, typical Sean Payton playoff team. That's what he was hired for. He was the successor under Sean Payton, except he's on the defensive side of the ball. So you make that hire because you want to keep what Sean Payton laid down as a foundation. You wanted to keep that going. Well, it just didn't work out that way because, for one, I think Dennis Allen is one of them coaches that are great coordinators, but they're just not cut out to be a head coach. Kind of like Steve Spagnuolo, you former head coach of the Giants, right? All about him. He used to be a defense coordinator for the Saints. Now he's doing great in KC, and I don't see why he would ever leave Kansas City and not be the defensive coordinator there. So, with that being said, summarize what I'm trying to say is I think typically you see this from a frustrating veteran team when they do fire their head coach. And normally when teams fire their head coach this early, you do see these type of streaks. 2 wins in a row, 3 wins in a row. In the Saints case, it was 2-1. They beat Atlanta. They beat Cleveland. Especially when you beat Atlanta, a rivalry. It's that really got the ball rolling. Got these veterans juiced up. It was a tough loss to the Rams, but I think the Rams are a fringe playoff team and could easily be a full-time playoff team if they didn't have the injuries to their, core wide receivers, if that makes sense. So, that's why they went 2-1. That's why they're having a small little success, is because they finally get to play with more freedom. They don't have to worry about Dennis Allen anymore.
Right. And moving on to your interim head coach, Darren Rizzi. Does he have a chance to be the permanent head coach next season? Because we saw this with Antonio Pierce, and it hasn't worked out in Vegas. Could it work in New Orleans with this guy? Is the jury still out, or are you convinced that he's just a placeholder for the next guy?
Unless he somehow wins out and we mathematically get into the playoffs, which our percentage went way down after the loss against the Rams, I would say yes. But knowing that we now have a slim chance to make the playoffs, it's probably not going to happen. Taysom Hill is out for the year. It seems like he was, our only chance, for contention in my opinion. So I think right now, thinking he might be the head coach moving forward. I think he would be like plan C or plan D on the list if plan A, B, C, didn't work out, because he shouldn't be your first option. And I know it's not their first option, because I can tell you now they really want Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator from the Lions. Joe Brady was tossed in there, but I think Joe Brady's just more like a name to toss in there to say, just because, he's got Saints ties, he's got LSU ties. But Aaron Glenn is the name to watch. If you don't get him, then maybe Rizzy has a shot. But if Rizzy doesn't, continue to win, and put out above 500 record for the rest of the season, he won't have a shot anyways, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. That's a good point, too. And what the Lions have been able to do without Aiden Hutchinson, I think, speaks volumes. And also your former guy, Alex Anzalone, over with the Lions. I know he's a little banged up now, but, he definitely has had a good run in Detroit. So that could be some good familiarity for you guys. What's up, Kevin? Let's go Giants. Appreciate the comment, Kevin. It's been a rough season, 2-10. Maybe not as expected. I think below 500 was expected, but not 2-10. Speaking of changes, Sean, with a new head coach, sometimes comes a new quarterback as well. But Derek Carr's been here for a year or two now. Where do you stand with him as the Saints franchise quarterback? Do you think he'll be the quarterback once this new head coach gets hired, or are they going to look elsewhere? Could they look at Spencer Rattler for a year and try to get somebody like an Arch Manning, or what could possibly happen?
I think at this point, them going on a 2-1 record the past 3 games, I think you kind of put yourself out of contention to get a top 3, top 5 pick to get that quarterback in this year's draft, which there are some great options, in my opinion, in that top 5 range for quarterbacks. Outside of that, it gets kind of, it's a little iffy. So, if they were to win even 1 or 2 more games, I don't see us drafting a quarterback at all. That would mean that Derek Carr would be your guy, unless depending on who's the head coach, maybe you either try to cut Derek Carr, just take on all the dead cap, or you trade Derek Carr for maybe a similar contract, maybe a guy that the new head coach would prefer. It just depends. Either way, he has more of a shot to be the quarterback for the Saints one more season if they keep winning. Even 1 more win, 5 wins, that might barely get you a top 10 pick. It's a lot of losing teams.
I'll tell you this. I would take Derek Carr and the Giants right now, though, with the way things are going for us.
You don't want it.
Over Drew Lock for sure.
I don't even think Derek Carr is a bad quarterback. I think, he's a pretty average quarterback, and he gets paid like an average quarterback. I don't even think he gets paid that much. Us restructuring his contract, kicking the can down the road, kind of made it a little bit more lucrative for us. But the only way you're going to win with Derek Carr is if you have a complete team around him. He's a game manager on a really good team. If you put him in a struggling environment, it's already been proven for his entire career, besides maybe 1 season when he make the playoffs with the Raiders, that, if your team's struggling, he might look like the best player on the struggling team, but he's still not going to help you win, is what I'm saying, if you're a struggling team. Not a difference maker.
It's true. It's true. Sticking with football here, because I know we got some interesting comments. We'll get to those in a moment. I didn't know this. When I looked this up, I always knew, he's been banged up, but he's never rushed for 1,000 yards in a season in his entire NFL career, Alvin Kamara, despite being held out of the end zone for the last 2 months. How has he performed as an older back? Because there's a stigma right now against older backs that they shouldn't get paid. Now, Kamara got paid before this whole trend started, and I don't want to blame it on one guy, but the contract on Christian McCaffrey really set the running back high, and then teams started overpaying. And we saw that where that got Dallas. We saw where that got other teams that paid high for these running backs. But Kamara seems to be holding his own.
I think Kamara, what he does best in the receiving game as a running back, the run after the catch, just like McCaffrey would, even though I would say McCaffrey's a better rusher than Kamara. I think that helped his longevity, in the NFL. And I think, he's going to continue to be this type of running back like he's always been. He's the guy you want in your PPR league, fantasy league. Every single year he produces, per receptions. I don't even understand why they just don't put him as slot wide receiver. But when you put that, what I'm saying, and you also got to realize he's also played with Mark Ingram, who is all-time leading rusher for the New Orleans Saints. So, he's always been paired up with somebody. He was paired up with Latavius Murray, who was like an off-brand Mark Ingram, who 6'3" and not 5'11", if that makes sense. So he's always been paired with somebody, and I think once you saw, nobody else to be paired up with him in these last few years, Jamal Williams kind of looked washed up since last season. He's kind of struggled, but now with the new contract, him being more of a proven leader of the team, because it seems like he's been the voice of the team this year. Last year, he was starting to be in that role. He's never really been that for the Saints, but now he's been like the head voice in the locker room, in my opinion, and to the media. So I think, I don't know, that kind of inspired him to finally put it on the ground. And his first 1,000-yard season, I think, is a indictment that, he's still got good amount of years left in him. Maybe this is like how Chris Johnson was when he was with the Cardinals after, his last few years after the Tennessee Titans. It's kind of the same way. He had 1 or 2 great seasons with the Cardinals, and then he kind of dropped off. I think you're going to see the same thing with Alvin Kamara.
Shout out Zach Hoffman. Giants are winning the Super Bowl in the next 3 years, guaranteed. My name is Zach, and I approve this message.
Hey, you're just throwing a dart with that one. It may happen, it may not. You just gotta, you gotta pray on that one. I don't know.
Stop being nice, Sean. Just say it. It's not happening. Look, I know this is trolling, Zach, but I'm going to say this. If the Giants win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, I'll pay for your fantasy championship, because it's not happening. It's not happening.
They're going to come back to you, and they're going to make you pay for that if it happens.
Yeah, I just don't know. It all depends on if the Giants hit that quarterback spot, right? Because we've been dealing with Daniel Jones for years now, and Tommy Cutlets is a backup, let's say that. And Drew Lock is here for a cup of coffee. He's probably not going to be here next year, so we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen, but speaking of not knowing what's going to happen, Sean, what's going to happen with your offense this weekend? Taysom Hill, is it officially a season-ending injury, or have they not announced that yet? Because I wrote this down, and then I looked at the injury report, and it's like, oh, he just didn't practice today.
No, he's been ruled out. As far as I know, he's been ruled out. A torn ACL is what.
Oh, dog. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that was a verified report. I think I saw it from Nick Underhill, which is a very credible New Orleans Saints reporter.
I've heard the name.
He gets called out all the time on NFL Network because they're always using his tweets for news for the Saints. So I believe I saw that from there. So he's out for the season, and to be honest with you, dude, that just puts more pressure on Alvin Kamara to produce. And honestly, I'm at the point, it's like, do we even want to put more mileage on Kamara? It's like, at this point, you might as well just let him rest a little bit. So, you got Kendrick Miller coming back. Rizzy's talked about him, that he's on, the cusp of returning and being, being the second running back behind Kamara, especially with Taysom Hill. He was our second rusher next to Kamara the past 3 weeks since Rizzy took over. So you might see Kendrick Miller more, and because there's really no other options. I mean, MVS, he's replacing Rashid Shaheed on the deep passes. He doesn't do anything else. You're relying on Kevin Austin, undrafted free agent. Your boy from Notre Dame. I think he was with the Jaguars at first.
Yep.
You got Dante Pettis.
Former
from
Giant.
Washington, right?
Yeah, that too.
And then
Yep.
he played for you guys for a little bit for the Giants, right?
He did. Yes, he did. Yes, sir.
So what are you gonna do? You gonna make Derek Carr run the RPO and maybe because he looked good on that one run 2 weeks ago against the Browns.
Yeah.
But that's
Juwan
what
Johnson.
You're gonna see. You're just gonna see Kamara and hopefully Miller is healthy enough where he gets to play.
Right. Now, I will say the NFC South is a different breed, though. You guys are technically only 2 games back in the division. So I think you're going to run Kamara into the ground until you're mathematically eliminated, Sean. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But
it's just like running a old Ford pickup truck and, it's the middle of 0 below cold weather, and it starts up and it runs, but you might not get to your destination as fast.
Very, very true. Speaking of destinations, the Saints defense has done a good job keeping teams out of their destination, which is their end zone this season. You guys have really been hit by the injury bug hard this season, and it all started before the season even started. It was Ramczyk. I think you were the one telling me on the draft show, don't expect Ramczyk to play in 2024. But defensively, man, you lost Paulson Adebo early. You lost a few other players as well, and you've surrendered under 24 points in 4 straight games. That might not seem like a crazy good stat, but considering you've got some house money there at certain parts of the defense, what do you attribute that to?
I mean, you got bulk of your veterans on that side of the ball. 2 of them's been here for a very long time. They know they were part of a winning culture. Now it's shifting to a kind of a losing culture, and it's start to become a rebuild, and it's at the end of their time, So there's a sense of pride. They may not be consistently good like they were in the past, but they're going to give it their entire effort. It's a very slow defense, very old defense. You got to remember, there's Tyrann Mathieu, there's Demario Davis, there's a Cam Jordan. These guys are just not going to quit, or they would have asked for a trade already and been out of here. Lattimore didn't really ask for a trade. I think he was pretty much our only asset we had to gain some sort of picks. So we had to trade him. We restructured his contract to trade him, and he's with the Commanders now. I don't think he's even played a game since he's been traded. But I'm just, you got them core veterans of the team on that side of defense, and they're just not going to quit. Lante Taylor has looked way better on the outside than versus the slot. You have Kool-Aid McKinstry pretty much as your number 1 cornerback, and he's looking pretty solid. And, you got, I can't pronounce his name, Ungo. I can't pronounce his last name.
I know who you're talking about. I saw him on the depth chart. Yeah.
Yes, and he's filled in the slot for Alante Taylor, and he's been doing a great job. A special teamers, a Rizzy guy. So I mean, you got depth on a defense. Look, Dennis Allen knew defense. Yeah, the defense hasn't been as good, but that's because they're old and slow, and Dennis Allen is in a defensive coordinator. He was the head coach. He had more stuff to worry about. So, yeah, the defense wasn't as good, but he knew defensive players. He knew who to draft. He knows he was the Sean Payton offensively. He's the defense version of Sean Payton, in my opinion, as far as knowledge on that side of the ball. But, like I said, veterans, the key veterans of that team, they're old. They have a bunch of pride. That's the main reason why you haven't seen them completely, be completely horrible, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think it bodes the question with how well the defense has been playing and how poorly the NFC South has been playing this season, Atlanta's starting to fall off as of late. The Bucs have a favorable schedule, but they're banged up. Now, unbiasedly speaking, I think the Bucs have the clearest path at this time. At the beginning of the season, I thought Atlanta, but with what I've been seeing the last few weeks and the Bucs having that easy schedule, it's hard for me to see a path for any other team, including Atlanta. But is there a path for the Saints in these last 5 games?
I don't think so. I mean, you should win at New York, but it could go either way. In my opinion, now with Taysom Hill, you're looking at honestly, yeah, Derek Carr is a little better than Drew Lock, but that's the only thing we got going. You guys got the better wide receiver. Honestly, Tyrone Tracy is just as effective for your guys' offense as almost just like how he's just a younger Alvin Kamara for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, Drew. So, if the defense does not come prepared against Drew Lock, he gets connection with Nabers. He gets a connection with Theo Johnson, who I like for y'all. He's looked good. He looks like he might be your guys' tight end of the future. With what's his name? He's out for injury.
Well, Theo's out.
Starting tight end.
Theo's out.
Who?
Theo's out with the injury, the foot injury. He's out for the remainder of the season. Unfortunately,
Theo Johnson is.
Yeah, he got banged up on Thanksgiving, so he's. But you're thinking of. I think you're thinking of either Daniel Bellinger or Greg Dulcich, one of those guys.
Okay, I was thinking. I was talking about Theo Johnson because I really do like Theo Johnson.
Sorry to ruin your point, by the way.
No, it's okay.
It was a great point. Yeah.
I didn't know he was injured, but so I guess y'all have to rely on Greg Dortch now. So you guys just signed him off of waivers.
Did we?
Yeah, Greg Dortch from the Broncos, right?
Greg Dulcich, the tight end.
Yeah.
Close. Yeah, you're right. He's another guy. He played with Drew Lock in Denver.
That's true. So, I mean, maybe you get that connection going.
Yep.
We got young cornerbacks that are finally starting in their careers. You never know. So it could be a good game. And you got the Commanders. We've struggled for the last 3 years against quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels. And I know Jaden Daniels hasn't really been running the ball like he's, was early in the season. But, I think we would really struggle against Jaden Daniels. Didn't you play at Green Bay?
Yep.
We always seem to lose to Green Bay at, a very close game. For some reason, we always play them real hard. We either blow them out or we lose to them in a close game. It's either one of those two. So it's at Green Bay. I think that's a loss. So that's 2 losses back to back. Vegas, I mean, you can win that game if you do what you're supposed to do, and then you're at Tampa. I mean, I see 3 losses there. I don't think there's not really a path for me.
6-11 probably based off that.
Man.
You should beat us, and then you should beat the Raiders. That's all I could really give you, unbiasedly speaking.
I agree.
I don't even want to give you the Giants game, but you're probably going to get it.
It'll probably be a close game.
It must suck this week knowing you got to go up against Malik Nabers, and we know he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 3, but he's on the verge to set a lot of rookie records this season at the wide receiver position, fastest to the most catches that he's been on track for. I believe the stat he's chasing now is so he's got 40 first down receptions, 75 catches, 740 receiving yards. Now the Giants have not had a 1,000-yard receiver since I want to say 2018 or 2019. It might even be further back than that. It's been a long time, Sean. I think Odell Beckham was our last 1,000-yard receiver.
Wow.
Terrible,
and probably
right?
Victor Cruz before that.
Yeah. It's been tough, but hey, Sean, let's get into some keys of the game. I'll start with the Giants here to kind of set the tone because I know we've been talking a lot about the Saints. And tell me if you agree. If the Giants are going to win this game, They have to run the football and run it well. Tyrone Tracy Jr. is a really, really good day 3 pickup for us in this year's draft. But they haven't been able to stay true to the run game late in games due to the negative game script. The Saints give up 5.2 yards per carry to running backs this season. That stat now ranks last in the NFL. I know you do have a couple good defensive tackles, including the young guy from Clemson and BB there, but I have a feeling that Tracy, if the Giants can just keep the ball on the ground and not force Drew Lock to make many big passing plays, there is a path for the Giants to win this football game, and I think that is the path right there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to. I mean, I think you're going to have to use Tracy on both aspects of the offense, receiving and rushing the ball. You know, I think you keep pounding. You know, you still got Singletary, right? He's healthy.
He's still
so
there.
Why not use both of them? Maybe even use Eric Gray. Use all three. You know, I think you do run the ball against them. And you know, when you do drop back for a pass, I think we struggle against, you know, little scat backs, you know, little safety routes where we just give up all these yards, easy first downs to these little running backs that's just sitting there. And we, you know, our defense is set up for the pass. You know, Burries from Clemson, he's been a very good pass rushing defensive tackle. You know, he's been our pass rush for us. Our secondary is set up for the pass as well. You know, they can handle coverage up to a lot of time until it's too late. So you're going to have to run the ball. Once you worn down our old defense, then you could probably get Malik Nabers into the game, start going to him. Your corners might be a little tired. You know, it's just whatever you can do just to gas our defense, the better chance you will have to get the most yards per attempt, to get into the red zone to score. So you just gotta gas our defense because we're old. So if you find a way where you can just constantly pound it, control it in the trench, you know, control it in the trench, constant, get 3 or 4 yards per carry, you have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. I think getting to Derek Carr, you know, Giants had over a 10% sack rate heading into last week, but the defense has just 1 sack in over their last 3 games. And in fact, Carr this was crazy when I read it. Carr has not been sacked more than once in a single game this season. Incredible.
Yes. So it is crazy considering the injuries we have had. But, you know, with Clint's new offensive scheme, I think it's made it easier for Derek Carr not to get sacked as much because, you know, quite frankly, he's not passing the ball as much. You know, I think he's the type of quarterback you do want to keep under a certain amount of passing attempts. It's kind of just like, you know, how the 49ers use Brock Purdy, you know, and you know, if Christian McCaffrey or whoever they have in that backfield, because it seems like whoever they throw back there does pretty good. Guerrero, Jordan Mason, you know, they rely on the running to set up the pass. So I think that plays a big part of it. That's why you see Alvin Kamara pushing 1,000 yards. So I think that plays a big part of it. And, you know, I think we had a phenomenal first-round pick in our left tackle, Funga. And then, you know, Penning has been huge at the right tackle position. He's one of the best run-blocking right tackles in the league. He's consistently getting high PFF grades, which I don't quite value PFF grades, but, you know, a lot of people use that as a source to grade players, so why not put that out there? Because he's, you know, rated high, you know, and Eric McCoy is easily one of the best centers in the league, definitely top 5. So I just feel like they've done a good job. The backups we have brought in, shout out to Matt Grovin, which I don't think he's even on our team anymore. I think he went to our practice squad or went to somewhere else. He's he stood in for Eric McCoy. He also did a pretty good job. So I don't quite remember who our offensive line coach is, but I think we did move on from Doug Moreau. I don't think he's the offensive line coach anymore. So whoever that is doing a great job, you know.
Yeah, I think it's John Benton now, the O-line coach. I think he took over, but yeah. Sorry, folks, little blunder there, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Saints' offensive line. To build off that point, this is Penning's first year as a full-time starter. He's played 99% of the snaps. He's been called for 5 holding penalties, and he's only allowed 3 sacks. So again, not awful numbers in the pass blocking game either. And then Fuaga has played 98% of the snaps as a rookie, only 1 holding penalty all season. He's allowed 5 sacks, but again, rookie tackles take time to adjust. When Andrew Thomas was a rookie, folks, us Giants fans know he's regarded as one of the top left tackles in the NFL. He gave up close to 10 sacks his rookie year. It was not pretty for him. So Talise Fuaga, I think, has done a fine job. Sean, what's your key to the game?
Our key to the game is, you have to get Kamara active and going. You gotta, you gotta do what we just said. What the Giants have to do. You gotta establish the run. Establish the run. You guys have a fast defense as well. So run after catch opportunities might not be there against you guys. So you do have to establish the run. You do have to establish physical dominance in the trenches. Jawan Johnson, I think, is a sleeper, like as in a factor in the passing game. It just seems like even in the beginning of the season, he just has this connection in the car with Carr where he just running straight wide open, and Carr doesn't even hit him half the time. I went to that Carolina game because I live in Charlotte now, and there's about 4 times Jawan Johnson was wide open, and it's like Carr didn't hit him. But that's why I think he's a sleeping, because if Carr does finally look up and find Jawan Johnson, he could have a touchdown or 2 in the red zone. You might see him with 3 or 4 catches for 50, 60 yards, which would be huge for us, considering our leading receiver last week was Taysom Hill, I believe, right?
Yep.
For what, 37 yards, huh?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, if you could get 50 or 60 from Jawan, that'd be great. Foster Moreau has looked good this year for a backup tight end as well. Maybe get them 2 going. Maybe like how the Kansas City Chiefs utilizes Kelsey and Noah Gray. I know there's 2 different offenses. Like, I know that, but it's just like, you can use 2 tight ends, especially when Jawan's a former wide receiver. So, we got options.
Yeah, and look, Derek Carr carved us up last year. He's been really good at not turning the football over. I know he struggled at times this year, but just 4 picks the entire season. He's only been sacked 7 times. He has 5 games with multiple touchdown passes, and he has not thrown a pick in the last 4 games. Say what you want about him. The Saints are 0-3 without Derek Carr at quarterback this season. They're 4-5 with him. This is average quarterback play. If you can get average play from the rest of your team, you're probably a playoff team. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. And I'm watching for Derek Carr in this game. He scares me a little bit. Him and Kamara, that tandem is a problem. Alvin hasn't scored since week 6. I think he scores on Sunday, and those 59 catches definitely concern me, Sean. Hot take. He had 112 rush yards against the Rams last week. He will surpass that against the Giants this week and get 1,000 yards rushing for the first time in his NFL career. Book it. You heard it here first.
Well, I hope that happens because, Alvin Kamara deserves it. He's definitely a fan favorite. Even though I was a guy, I apologize, even though I was a guy that was kind of wanting him to kind of move on because I wanted to start the rebuild process. But honestly, if he continues to stay loyal, he's willing to be the leader of this team, and I think that alone is a valuable asset. And I would love to see that the Who Dat Nation would have at least something to cheer for this season if he does do it. So, yeah, he's arguably already a top 10, not if not top 5 all-time Saint already. So, which is crazy because for a franchise that did a lot of winning in the 2000s and 2010s, they spent half their years losing. So we've actually had a lot of good players. So him to be already top 10, top 5 in Saints history, maybe he'd be second or third best when he comes retirement. I mean, that says a lot.
It does. And with that being considered, you mentioned Juwan Johnson before. Any other players to watch the Saints, maybe one or two of the Giants that everyone should have their eyes on this Sunday?
Yeah, like I mentioned, Kendre Miller, if he's healthy, if he's ready, that's a guy to watch out because there's not much tape on him. And, he does get 4 or 5 yards per carry, if I'm not mistaken. That average could be wrong, but very small sample size. But he has shown that he has the ability. He just can't stay on the field. Bub Means, if he gets to play, I know he's on the injury report, but I think he was listed as a full practice. There was times where he showed flashes, but I don't think he's developed. Derek Carr doesn't do well with young rookie wide receivers besides Olave, because you see A.T. Perry's not on the team anymore. That's because he's never developed chemistry with Derek Carr. And Bub Means, I feel bad for him. If he was with Spencer Rattler, he had a better connection with him. That'd be another guy to watch out for. But other than that, there's really not much. Mason Tipton doesn't do anything. So he plays 80, 90% of the snap count, but literally doesn't do anything. I guess they just got him in there for blocking,
See this comment from your boy here, Sean?
Ryan, I don't know what to say. I mean, yeah, I told you 5.8. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking for the Giants. I'm looking at Malik Nabers and Tyrone Tracy specifically on the offense that really have to get things going for Big Blue this week. Sean, you've been watching Malik Nabers for a while now. You're a big fan of his. I don't know if Alante Taylor's going to play, but it should be very interesting to see what happens with Malik Nabers this weekend against the Saints.
Yeah, man. I don't, Alante, I like Alante a lot. I think he's an aggressive corner, but when you're an aggressive corner, you tend to get beat, at time to time. So Malik Nabers is not a guy to play with. Knowing him from LSU and like it's just don't let him. If you let Nabers catch the ball, it's kind of like Tyreek Hill. It's like Tyreek Hill. If you let him catch the ball and you give him just the smallest of space, that's a mistake. So Malik Nabers is one of the better run after catch wide receivers I've seen in a long time. He's also one of the better route runners as well. He's got he's this movement with him that seems to find his way to be more open. So. Yeah, man, it's going to be an interesting matchup, but, I can easily see Nabers getting I think he had 8 catches last game, didn't he?
Yes, 8 receptions for 69 yards last week.
So I think you will see something similar. I think, you will see about 8 catches, about 70 to 80 yards. If he gets a touchdown or 2, that means the Giants are winning.
Yeah, I think the problem with the Giants this game, if they have any chance of winning, they need Evan Neal and Jermaine Illuminor to play. And that's crazy. I'm saying Evan Neal needs to play because he is not good at all. But they need those two back at tackle. He's been off this year. He got touchdowns, but he's played better the last couple of weeks. And then Raheem Nunez-Roches did not practice with a neck and a shoulder injury. That's on top of losing Dexter Lawrence for the season, which is why, Sean, I said earlier, I think Kamara is going to feast on this defense. The run defense is not there. It's not. It's terrible.
No, I mean, Dexter Lawrence, not having Dexter Lawrence is a huge loss. I wish the Saints can get a Dexter Lawrence type player.
Right. You need that in the modern NFL.
He's just like Chris Jones in a way. It's just that type of defensive lineman. Maybe Brees could be that. You never know.
Yeah, Breezy's a good player. Look, I think he's solid. 2.5 sacks over the last 2 games, 6.5 this season. Carl Granderson is not bad either. Those guys have really come to play. We know Cam Jordan and Demario Davis are the elder statesmen on this Saints defense. But all in all, Sean, I still think even though Cesar Ruiz and Nick Saldiveri are banged up, I don't see this from keeping Kamara to run all over the team. So with that being said, let's get into our game predictions. Who's winning and what's your final score?
I'm just going to go Saints 22-17.
All right. Appreciate the generosity, folks. Eric McCoy and Lucas Patrick coming back for the Saints as well.
True.
Coming back on. That guy, Passignon, I don't know how that's you say his name, but he crushed us last year. He had like 2 or 3 sacks in that game against the Giants.
He's huge too. He's like 6'8".
Yeah. I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to say Saints win 25-17. All right, folks. He's Sean Militello. I'm Tom Scavetta. If you want to check out Big Blue Avenue as well, you can subscribe to us below on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate all of your support. Without further ado, folks, let's go Big Blue.
Go Saints. Who dat?